Thank you for tuning in to Quality Violence Cinema. We have Jack Mulvanerty, right? Or how did you say your last name?
Infinity.
Okay, cool. So, what got you into making short films?
So in general, I've been making movies since I was a kid. Probably around the age of 10 or 11, I was obsessed with horror movies, and I would steal my dad's camera and spray fake blood everywhere and ruin the house. And I've been progressing over the years since then. I've made shorts and features, and recently this collection was just I had 5 shorts that I all felt uh, fit together, and I didn't really know what to do with them. And I had an idea of making a compilation, but normally, like, I would try to aim to do more of a feature project, but a short is kind of the middle ground of portraying an idea and getting it on camera and being able to express yourself without having to fill an hour plus of content.
Yeah, sometimes it just feels like filler, and it's like, well, you could have just edited all that out. But I'm like, well, then that would have been a short film, So yeah, I get that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I remember when I was 15, I had my movie Creeps distributed from Wild Eye Entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah,
them. It
yeah,
was a really schlocky movie. It was called Creeps, Tale, Murder, and Mayhem, and it was like 55 minutes when we sent it to him, and he was like, "I'll distribute this movie, but you guys have to film 20 more minutes."
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and we just filmed like a couple more goofy death scenes. It's a really cheesy movie. It's not like the stuff I make now.
Yeah, and you're
But
uncredited for Return of the Class of Nukem High, yeah?
yeah, I'm actually in the credits on that. I don't know why it says uncredited. I was an extra. That was my summer going into ninth grade. So I was
Okay.
young as shit. And I met Lloyd Kaufman at a Comic Con. He was like, "Hey, if you want to be an extra in my movie," and I was like, I was obsessed with Troma at the time, so I was like, "Fuck yes!" And we took a trip to Niagara Falls, and I ended up being like a second of the movie. You see, like my whatever 13-year-old ass running out of a burning building.
That's funny.
Yeah,
Like cool, just being there at the right time.
yeah, absolutely.
So this kind of goes to what you're already saying, but are you planning on sticking with shorts, or is there a full length feature you want to make?
Um, so I think after this short collection comes out, I want to focus on a feature. I have an idea for one. It's all about me finding the right people to do the things that I need them to do, and also doing it in a way where, like, I want to put more money towards this project than I have other films, and I want to really take the time to make it something special. So I do have ideas for a feature, and that's definitely like in the works, but it's a process. It's
Yeah.
definitely a process. It takes a minute, and I work on low budgets, and I do everything myself, and I'm grateful for the people that have been in my work and done the things that were needed to be done to
Yeah.
create the art. But
Yeah, and you
yeah,
can
it's
do low budget, but it just takes a lot more time,
absolutely, and especially the kind of content that I'm interested in making. It's about making the right connections and finding people who are down with the vision.
Hmm.
Because you post an ad and it's like horror movie looking for actors. I'm not making a Friday the 13th homage slasher. Like, that's totally cool in my opinion. I love all that stuff, but I'm trying to make, more artistic, deep, and extreme content.
So what are some directors that inspire your style of filmmaking?
Lars von Trier,
Hmm.
he's a big influence of mine. I think he really pushes envelopes, and he really just how his films look are so depressing and beautiful. I'd say Gaspar No.
Hmm.
He's a big influence of mine. Just his camera work and the editing and the stories he tells. I watched his new film Vortex and I loved it.
Hmm.
Um, I just absolutely love him as a filmmaker. Marion Dora is a big influence of mine.
Hmm.
Um, Lucifer Valentine, although maybe controversial.
Yeah, but I
His
have all
film,
that.
yeah, his films. No one has made anything like. There have been fetish films and art similar to that, but when I got those films when I was in like 8th grade, which is way too young, um, there was nothing like it.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw some similarities to like Sato Messiah, like in some of his shorts and some of the things he does. If you're familiar with them.
Yeah, that's Sander Cage.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar. It's cool.
Hmm. But or older stuff like Richard Kern and definitely kind of like, especially with the silent film approach and some of it.
Absolutely. I would also say like Rogero Diodato. I love House at the Edge of the Park, or
Hmm.
yeah, and Cannibal Holocaust, and lastly Horror Buckaroo. Necromantic was like the first art horror film that I saw, and it blew me away.
Hmm. Yeah. So what genre would you classify your films under?
I mean, I love to call them horror films, art house, um, yeah, experimental. But they all, I think, no matter what the content I made, they all live inside a horrific realm. They portray horrific acts, or they portray violence, or a dark theme, or a dark energy. They all fit in the horror envelope, but trying to do something that's not just a straight horror movie, and trying to make something in my own way that's more experimental.
Hmm. Who does your soundtrack in most of your films?
So I'm a twin. My twin used to make music under the title of Virgin, and he makes like noise music and just some like alternative stuff, but mainly he did noise, and he did the soundtracks for all my movies.
Hmm.
He's amazing. Him and I, will sit and he'll send me songs, and they'll just fit perfectly.
Hmm.
It really fit the dark energy that I'm trying to portray, the noise, the feedback. All of that I think really fits in the dark aesthetic that I'm trying to portray in my films.
Yeah, it's good. It definitely shows that you know each other, and like, if that was the kind of like that kind of duo.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, like, I did some songs on Piety, so like I do some music too, but mainly he has done the music that's in most of the shorts, especially compiled on the Doll Fluids DVD that's coming out.
Mm-hmm. Have your films been in any festivals?
Honestly, I've never submitted them to festivals. My first film, Creeps, A Tale of Murder and Mayhem, I made when I was 15, got distributed from Wild Eye. Mm-hmm. Underground Gore Lectors released Piety. And yeah, I mean, I've had my films distributed. I've never had my films in festivals. Mm-hmm. I'd be curious to see the reactions people get. We did a screening in Philadelphia of Piety with a filmmaker, Johnny Dickey. He filmed screened his film Keith Loves Ava with Piety, and apparently people were upset at my movie. They were thought it was very depressing.
Speaking of that film, did you use real cutting in that, or was that all special effects?
In Piety?
Yeah.
Yeah, the cross cutting into his chest, that is 100% real.
Yeah, because it's one of those ones where you can tell it's like, okay, that like because of even the redness around the skin and just stuff like that. It's like it's hard to get that makeup right and to get that kind of effect. So I was like, that looks pretty real. So
absolutely, yeah, that was crazy. We made like a fake prison shank out of a razor, and a I don't even remember what it was, like a piece of stick and some tape, and he actually did it, and he cuts it a few times down the cross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I work with a lot, or I've done interviews with Daniel Valiant and a lot of the people that get into that scene. So it's nothing I'm really shy on.
Yeah.
What format do you mostly shoot in?
You talking about like what camera I use?
Yeah.
So I shoot on a Sony AX700. I think is the model. I'm really AX7000 maybe. It's like a 4K camera. I might be getting the model wrong. Honestly, I'm really bad with like technical, like the technicality aspects of movies. I just have this really nice Sony 4K camera that I shoot everything on.
Yeah.
I used to shoot on a Canon T3i. I remember that one. It's kind of dumb that I don't know the exact model that I shoot on currently.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm working with is the Sony 4K, so it's nice.
Yeah, it's one of the mirrorless cameras.
Hmm.
I'm blanking on the exact model, but it's one of the new mirrorless ones, and it's awesome. The lens it comes with is great. It fits all my needs.
Do you use a single camera then?
Yeah, I do multiple takes of things, but I can only afford one camera, so usually it's doing multiple takes, and it really comes down to editing.
Yeah, because it was edited really well, especially there's a scene by the nightstand where you're doing like a lot of quick edits. I thought that was really seamless and done really well.
In which one?
In Dolph Fluids.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we took that a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big fan of like energetic, fast cuts. I think it adds a certain level of intensity to a scene.
That's the only scene that made me question whether it was single shot or not, because it seemed so like, well, it like seemed like there was multiple angles. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do you record the narrative in your film, or like in Sulphur and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's my voice.
It reminds me a lot of like Godspeed You Black Emperor and just some of their like tones there, just especially where they kind of just go into these like long spiels of talks. I liked it a lot. I think it added to the tone a lot. Thank
you. Yeah, Godspeed is a really cool band. I can see that. Yeah, I don't know. I tried to make that piece as experimental as possible, and those stories of like the dead animals over the footage of the woman, those are all like true stories from my childhood. And I used like a dark pitch down, and I just thought it was interesting. I thought the way that it worked was really well, especially with the music.
Do you act in most of your films?
When I need to. I acted in Dolph Fluids and the short Mercy, but I really prefer to direct. But if it's something that, it calls for me to act or I can't find another person, I'll do it. I honestly have there's nothing that I feel uncomfortable doing, and there's nothing that like, if I can't find another person that's willing to do something, I'll just do it.
Yeah. Do you go for the silent film approach for artistic reasons or for budget?
Well, honestly, I think the silent film approach works well because sometimes I feel like low budget films dialogue sometimes make it seem campy. I think there are a lot of amazing independent actors, and potentially in the future I'll add dialogue, but sometimes I think you can really show a message without dialogue and just with action. And I think the dark entity of my movies, I think you could tell based on the energy and what's shown on screen. And I like people to make their own opinions of what they think the films are about as well.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Aftermath, and even just like in the trilogy too, where like they all kind of have like a somewhat of a similar feel, like each of your shorts, but they all kind of tell like a different religious approach to something, or have a kind of like a similar theme in some aspect,
Yeah, I definitely think they bleed together pretty well. They fit as a morbid family.
Was it difficult to cast roles for your films?
No. The people that were in my films came into my life without me really looking for actors. They were people that were close to me, that were willing to do whatever.
Trust you and stuff.
They already fully trust me. I don't want to give away because they want to remain anonymous.
Yeah, I get that.
Their relationships to me, but I love them. They did amazing work, and luckily I've had some great people that I worked with, and I think the people that are in this short collection, and all three, whoever they are all five, they killed it, and they went the full length. And luckily, I found people that are like-minded enough to want to be in something like this, or want to contribute ideas,
and see it for the art.
Yeah, and see it for the art purpose, because you show these things to the normal person and they might be absolutely repulsed, or they might not understand, or they might think it's a certain way. But finding people that really understand, at least me as a person, was important, and finding people that were into the art, and I didn't need to like force someone into doing something, or like, I would never do that. It needs to be fully consensual, and everyone needs to be down with the project. I want people to be excited when they work on a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is your family supportive with your choice of filmmaking?
Yeah, my family's been supportive. I don't show them certain shorts or certain stuff I've made, because I don't need to shock them, and there's some things that they probably just better not see. But they've always supported my goals and what I was aiming for, and they've always been there for me. So they've always been huge supporters.
Mm-hmm. Where are most of your films shot?
Like which state?
Yeah, like what in locations and stuff?
Outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. Cool. Do you reuse a lot of your same props between movies?
So the dick prop, the penis prop from Doll Fluids is used in Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
But I made new props for Doll Fluids and new props for Sulphur.
Okay.
So, I mean, if it's something like, say I made a finger, you could probably save that for later. But if it's someone's specific face mold, I'll use their own.
Mm-hmm.
I do all the effects. I'll do all the effects myself.
Okay.
I take out the alginate and do the whole gel 10 silicone and paint it. So, yeah, if it's possible, I love to save effects and reuse them, because sometimes effects can be a pain to make. It's a lot of work.
It's cost effective too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get picked up by New Film Order?
So the original thing was, I posted Doll Fluids on Vimeo, and I posted it throughout some groups on Facebook, Reddit, and whatnot, and it got a decent amount of views. And I noticed that I forget who it was, but one of the people that run New Film Order Productions, they liked the video, and I messaged them and was wondering if they had interest in a release. And it worked out, because he was like, yeah, I was watching this and was wondering why he didn't go right to DVD with this. And the thing was, like, with short films, like, it's harder to distribute them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of companies want features, and then I realized, like, I have 5 shorts that all fit together in tone.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all dark and they fit well, and they've been really helpful. We're working on subtitles now. I signed the contract. So they said hopefully by the end of next week we'll be up and ready for pre-orders, and I hope people enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Were there other distribution companies that you had in mind?
No. Because at the time I didn't think it was possible to release it on DVD unless I did it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love so many companies that are out there right now. I collect so many underground companies and I love them, but I just didn't think my stuff would be worth like reaching out to other companies. But I may be wrong. I just kind of, was like, oh, these people have a company and they seem interested in my short. I'm gonna reach out to them.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think people find gratification in explicit sexual gore?
For me, I think there's a level of like something that shouldn't be seen is seen, like what people deem as perverse or deviant or dark or too sexual or pornographic. It's like it's what is not normally seen, but even though people behind closed doors watch porn, you know, like I think people are drawn to it because it's just on another level. Like it's one thing to show a guy get shot by a bullet, that's violent, and that hits a certain pleasure. But for me, like I find it very interesting seeing nudity. I find it very interesting seeing BDSM or sexual violence or all sorts of things, just because it reminds me of like a carnal urge. And so a lot of the shorts had, you know, dealt with some of my sexual. I was kind of like, I grew up a Catholic, so I had a lot of issues with sexuality, like feeling guilty for having sex with women or not feeling bad for things I was into. And now I can express them in film now that I've gotten past all that stuff. So I don't know. I think different people for different reasons. I personally think it's interesting to see sexual content. I personally think violence is interesting. I think if you do it in an interesting way and you have something to say, I don't know though. I think there can be different reasons for everyone, but for me personally, I think if it's done right and it hits that like that energy that I love seeing and they do it in an interesting way, it really makes me enjoy a film.
Mm-hmm. Do you go for a more surreal approach, or is there a deeper meaning in the stories in your film?
There's deeper meanings in the stories to my film. A lot of them deal with religion. Some of them deal with my feelings towards love, depression, addiction, all things that I've been through in life. Like doll fluids, at the time I was in a really dark place making that film. I was in the depths of a heroin addiction. I was like 3 months into a run. I was 140 pounds. By the time I got to the doctors, my muscle was eating itself. And I made this short film, and honestly, I was on my last legs at that moment in life. And as you see, like there's a scene where he cuts the fingers and he's bleeding. Like the character is just so far removed from life. He's so like devoid of everything, and he meets this other tortured girl, and he inflicts suffering on her, but he also inflicts suffering on himself. And like, I don't know, a lot of my films have to deal with like suffering and punishment and just depression and doing it in a way that's not strictly saying this is what it's about.
So you say most of your films are a reflection of personal struggles?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say that me as a person wants to go do crazy things to people, but I do think like expression of darkness and mental illness and all that struggle, I think that comes from a dark place inside my mind. There's a reason I make the kind of films I make. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just come from me wanting to be shocking for shock's sakes, mm-hmm. or just thinking something looks cool. Like the cuts in doll fluids, those are real. Those are all, that whole filming of that short, that was a crazy time in my life. I was basically psychotic filming that. Mm-hmm. So it was a really crazy thing. It's sometimes I watch my films in it and I'm like, did I go too far on this, or what are people going to think of this? Mm-hmm. But then I'm like, this is what I made. This is what came out of my creativity. Mm-hmm. And sometimes your first instinct is the best instinct.
Yeah.
So.
No, I like all the religious symbolism that's and all of that. So were you were raised religious?
I was raised religious. I went to Catholic school. Although I was never molested by a priest, I was an altar boy, and the priest that I served under got arrested for molesting children. So I was really confused at a young age because I was raised Catholic, but I loved horror movies, and then I was seeing the priest in my church get arrested, and it was this whole fucked up situation where like people in the church that I went to were defending him, and there was all sorts of things that I was into, and I felt totally conflicted in my mind. And as I went into high school years, I made the decision not to go to church anymore. And that's when I kind of found myself and was like, you know what? I don't connect with this. This has been, I was raised, and I think people that raise their children religious, that's all they know, because their parents raised them religious.
Yeah.
That's what they think is the right thing to do. So I don't blame them, and I think maybe you can learn good morals from a church, but I don't think I have to go to church to know not to kill someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think being a person is separate from religion.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been kind of passive with religion just because of I wasn't raised religious. I didn't step foot into a church until I was like 12 or 13, until my dad remarried and married to a Southern Baptist woman, and then all of a sudden he became like a deacon and changed his ways and was forcing us to go to church. I was like, well, this is not the way he raised us. So I definitely fought it for a bit, but conformed eventually for like 2 years in high school, and then was over it.
Wow, that must have been kind of crazy with not having been used to it at 13 being accustomed.
Yeah, there's some interesting times I would tell people that, and some girls would just call me a heathen or like yell Bible verses at me because they when I told them I'd never been to a church before, and then it was like, it's like blew their mind with that concept.
Wow, that's crazy.
But so, what are some future projects you have in mind?
I don't want to get too into it because my creative projects. I have a script called Bug Catcher. That's about someone that's addicted to catching STDs. I think it would make a crazy movie. And I have another script about, and I think this might be the next one I make. Hopefully, it's about a girl's final night on the in her life as a prostitute. And she just meets the wrong person, but they go back and forth, and it's a little more than that, but I don't want to get too far into it. Those are just little blips.
And your one of your shorts was in Symbolicus?
Yes, Sulphur was in Symbolicus too.
Are you planning on, or did you reach out to Marcus on Symbolicus 3, or do you have any plans on that one?
I didn't. I mean, I thought since I was on 2, maybe they wouldn't want me on another one. I don't know if people are double dipping, but I mean, I'd be down to do whatever if he wants. But Marcus is a great guy.
Yeah, no, I love Marcus.
He's called me and helped me do special effects, and he put my short in his Symbolicus 3. So he's always been supportive, and I appreciate him. So, and I love what he does, like his effects and MK Ultra and Symbolicus. It's so awesome.
Yeah. We did a screening of the 4th one of MK4, but unfortunately he has some Discord issues. But that's Discord for you. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, thanks for joining, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It kind of has this hit and miss of like waves and of how active it gets, but I try to make sure to keep it active because I don't want it just being a sitting dead duck. Put too much into it. So, but I guess that's kind of it for questions. Unless there's anything you want to plug or say anything, or when is the release of Doll Fluids?
So it should be out by, hopefully pre-orders will be up by the end of next week. That's pretty much the only thing I have to plug. Shout out Johnny Dickey, and look out for future projects. That's pretty much all I got.
Well, cool. No, thank you for coming and giving the time. So,
thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah.